This video is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts, the best place to get your classic and vintage football shirts. To get cheap retro Palace shirts, click the link in the description below. And for an extra 10% off, use the code CFSPJ10 at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenborough, and in today's podcast I'll be looking over the game against West Brom by bringing my match review player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you interviews with Roy Hodgson and Andros Townsend after the game. So let's begin. Palace booked their place in the fourth round of the Carabao Cup thanks to excellent strikes from Andros Townsend and a patch of an out goal which ended West Bromwich Albion's interest in the competition. Townsend netted superbly early on to put Roy Hodgson's team in firm control, but despite creating many opportunities they had to be patient for more goals to come. But towards the end of the second 45 they did that, with Vananok getting on the score sheet and man of the match Townsend completing his brace to cap off an impressive display for the Eagles. The encounter was just 6 minutes old when Townsend netted another memorable goal at the Hawthorns to sit alongside his solo strike back in the 2016-17 campaign. Alexander Sorloth showed some great hold-up play before finding the winger inside his own half, and after a lengthy dribble he cut inside and powerfully whipped the ball into the top corner from 25 yards, leaving Myhill grasping thin air. Albion came back with an attempt from a similar range 3 minutes later when James Morrison's volley arced wide. However, every time they entered the final third, Palace looked threatening, and after a wicked delivery from Townsend was narrowly missed by the jumping Jeffrey Slupp, Vananok shot straight at Myhill. Even the setback of seeing Jara Riedwald forced off with a muscle injury couldn't halt the Eagles in the opening half, and Hegazi produced the first of two crucial goal line clearances after Slupp nicked the ball between Myhill's legs before Sorloth saw a couple of headers go begging. Despite the one-way traffic, the one-goal lead was a fragile one, and 5 minutes before the break, Vicente Gaeta had to pull off a smart acrobatic save to deny Morrison, after he had found space inside the box by Wes Hoolahan during a rare moment of danger for Hodgson's team, who nearly grabbed the crucial second when Townsend found himself onside following a deflected shot and chipped to Myhill, but once again Hegazi was well positioned. The game looked to be continuing in the same vein after the restart, as within 5 minutes Slupp's run was picked up by Sorloth, but Myhill made his best save. But slowly the hosts began to cause a little more problems themselves, and substitute Carl Hawkins forced Gaeta into a routine save on 66 minutes. However, 10 minutes later the Eagles secured their place in the fourth round when they finally added a second. A good run forward by makeshift centre-back Joe Ward allowed him to play a pass into the area which was only partially cut out by Carl Edwards, and Vananok pounced to blast home from the edge of the area. With Albion's hopes of progressing into the fourth round disappearing, Palace entered them completely on 81 minutes, with Townsend the beneficiary again. Slupp held up the ball in the box before laying it off to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and he nudged it into Townsend, who weaved past two defenders before crashing in a shot off the upright. The margin could have been even larger had Max Mara and Jordan Ayew not been denied late on by the Albion keeper, but Hodgson would have been more than happy with his return to his old stomping ground. Crystal Palace cruised through to the fourth round of the Carabao Cup after a 3-0 away win against Championship side West Bromwich Albion on Tuesday night. Andros Townsend bragged a brace for the Eagles, with Patrick Vananok also on target as Roy Hodgson's men progressed to the last 16 of the competition. A crowd of 10,818 was in attendance at the Hawthorns for the third round tie, including 871 Palace fans. But did they spot all these moments in the West Midlands? Hodgson's wave. Within 2 minutes of the kick-off, the West Brom fans were already asking Roy Hodgson for a wave, before the Palace fans had really got things going at the Hawthorns. He duly obliged and proved how much of a popular figure he remains in the West Midlands, after guiding them to survival and a 10th place finish during his times as the Baggies' boss. The Baggies supporters did not sing again asking for a wave, as Palace cruised to a comfortable victory. How far offside? Andros Townsend scored a superb opening goal and came close to a second not too long before half-time. But how was he not flagged offside is a mystery. He was clearly offside when the ball was struck towards goal, and even though the ball was deflected off a West Brom defender, time almost stood still as both sides looked for a flag which never came. Townsend then cut inside and chipped the ball towards goal, only to be denied by a goal line clearance by Hegazi. Hegazi's the lucky boy. Early on in the second half, the Egyptian defender was shown a yellow card for a foul on Alexander Sorloth, and he was lucky not to receive a second yellow at the same time, after reacting to the booking by throwing the ball away in disgust. Fortunately for him, referee Peter Banks opted to warn him instead. So now I'm going to move on to the player ratings, but before I start, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest Palace news. And also, if you're on Facebook, do feel free to join our Facebook group, which is a really great place to join in with discussions and also share your opinions with other fans. And if you are someone like me who likes to go on forums and likes to sort of get in discussions with other fans, then of course I would highly recommend you do join that Facebook group, because as I said, it's a really great place for you to sort of connect with other fans. And of course, it's not only for you to go on there and read other fans' opinion, but also it's a great place for you to also upload your opinion for other people to see. Now the same really could go for the Twitter group, the Twitter page and the Facebook page. I'd highly recommend you follow both these pages if you are someone who likes to keep up to date with all of the latest Palace news, as well as a few of our opinions as well. So if you are someone who wants to, a place to get all of the latest Palace news, whether that be regarding transfers, whether that be sort of injuries, team selection, anything like that, we do regularly update our Twitter and Facebook accounts. So if you are someone who wants to keep up to date with that, then of course you can follow us on there. Now, if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then that gives you a great place to also share your opinion. So if you are listening on here, then of course feel free to obviously drop a comment below the video with your player ratings, where you rate the players' performances from 1 to 10, with of course 10 being the best. And even if you don't want to do this, or even if you're a West Brom fan, then just comment below with your sort of general views of the game, because I personally thought in the first half, even though Palace were the more dominant side, I think West Brom had quite a good game in the fact that they had quite a few fair amount of chances. But of course, in the second half, we got our second goal, got our third goal, and eventually we went on to dominate the game. So if you have any other opinions of the game, obviously feel free to comment them as well. But also, like I've said, do comment below with your player ratings, so that I can just come back to the video and basically compare your opinion to my opinion and just see how we both thought the players did perform throughout the game. Now, like I've said already, whether you are a Palace or West Brom fan, I also want to hear from you just about the game in general. So of course, do feel free to comment below, or even contact us on Twitter at @crystalpalace, just sharing our sort of your general views of the game, not only so that I can read it and sort of reply back to you, but also any other fans who come to the podcast, they can not only listen to my opinion but also read what other fans have to say. Now of course, like I say every week, if you do want to follow any of these social media pages and of course join the Facebook group, then do check all the links that'll be in the description below. But before I go on to start with our first player, in the player ratings, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there, and I do this every time we have a cup game. Some may feel it's not necessary, but I personally, there are some people who also think it's necessary. But basically, it's a cup game, it's the Carabao Cup. Doesn't really matter too much to some people, because it's sort of not as good as the FA Cup. It's just something there just to sort of make up the numbers and give other teams a chance. So really, some people that doesn't really matter. For me personally, I'd love a cup run, so I'm not really in that bracket. But for people who don't really care too much about the cup, I'm really just going to give you a brief sort of oversight over each of the players and just give them a rating sort of out of 10. So rather than me just going on in so much detail about the game, because some of you are not really interested, I'm just going to keep it very concise, to the point, so you can get sort of a general view of how the players did and of course their performances as well. Now of course, one of the reasons for this is basically because most people follow Palace mainly because of the league, and obviously they're not really interested in any other competitions because the league is the priority, and that's something I do agree with. So like I've said already, rather than just going into too much detail as I would do in a league game, because obviously people are far more interested in that, like I said, I'm just going to give you sort of a small summary, and that's just to give you, those of you who are not necessarily as interested, just give you an idea about the game, how we performed. And like I said, even if you don't care too much about the cup, obviously if we do get a cup run and we eventually go far in competition, fingers crossed, touch wood, that we can go far, obviously you may become more interested. But just to give you an idea of how we performed and how we've done, of course, I'm just going to give you small summaries here. So I might as well start off in goal with Vicente Gaeta. Going to give him a 6 overall. Basically, West Brom, although they had their fair amount of chances, putting in crosses into the box, Gaeta was really sort of rarely tested in goal. But there were a few crosses, that he did save really, that he did claim really well. And of course there was a few sort of routine saves he made as well. One in particular, I think it was just before half time, he made, you know, lovely stretching dive to get the ball away. So Vicente Gaeta, you know, 2 clean sheets in a row in his 2 appearances for Palace. Going to give him a 6 overall, mainly because he didn't have too much to do in the game, but he still obviously claimed crosses and made them saves as well. Now Joe Ward was a player who played both at centre back and obviously right back in this game, and I'm going to give him a 7 overall. As I said already, he played in 2 positions, you know, started the game at right back and of course moved to centre back after Jara Riedewald went off with a knee injury. Don't know how serious that is, but hopefully it isn't, because I personally was excited to see, you know, our back 4 play, because it was something we hadn't really seen before in terms of that combination of players. But of course it's unfortunate Riedewald went off, but Joe Ward went in and obviously slotted in at centre back. Not his natural position, but I think he done really good there, hence the 7. I thought that he made a number of vital interceptions as well as a few challenges as well. Now when you consider he's a right back, he's not necessarily always about, you know, making these robust challenges, you know, making that sort of last ditch tackles, but actually considering he's playing out of position, he's still done a relatively good job at that. Obviously his centre back partner Martin Kelly, I'm going to give him a 6 overall. You know, I don't really think there's too much to say about his performance, because he was very steady at the back, very consistent, and obviously quite crucial in terms of us keeping a clean sheet, just keeping us solid at the back. And when you consider he's probably one of our more experienced players in the side, not necessarily because of age, but because he was probably one of the older players, but he was playing in his right position, whereas someone like Ward was playing out of position. Someone like Kelly playing in their normal position for the whole game. Well, I say normal position, he used to play right back, but let's just say for argument's sake, him playing at the back, just so it will give us that presence, obviously was great to see as well. Obviously Jara Riedewald, as I said, I've given him a 5 because obviously he went off with the injury, and I was really excited before the game. You know, I wanted to see what he could do at centre back, because admittedly, yes, he was terrible under Frank de Boer playing at centre back, but that's because he was thrown in at the deep end in a back 3, which of course, you know, drastically went wrong for us. And it wasn't just the fact that we played that formation, it wasn't just the fact that he played, there was a combination of things why it went wrong. So it was great to see him have another chance to play at centre back, but of course it was quite annoying and quite, you know, I suppose it's, you know, really devastating for Riedewald, that the fact that he got forced off with that injury. You know, he took a knock to his knee. Hopefully it isn't too serious, because I'm sure he'd be back on the bench in the next few weeks, or maybe even, you know, when we eventually find out our opponents for the 4th round, hopefully he'll be ready for that. But you know, I was really excited before the game to see what he could offer. He done relatively well in the time he was on the pitch, but I can realistically only give him a 5 because he went off and wasn't on the pitch really long enough to make a sort of a big enough impact, let's say. Obviously moving on now to the final player of our defence, and that is Patrick Van Aanholt. Going to give him a 7 because as he has been, you know, as we know what he is, you know, he's an attacking fullback, and that's exactly what he's done in this game here. Obviously, I said at the weekend about him getting forward at every opportunity down that left-hand side. Yes, it was against West Brom, which you may say are easier opponents, but he'd done that to great effect here against West Brom, and certainly he was one of the reasons we had so much dominance in the game, in the fact that we were just kept attacking down that left and right hand side. Now of course he netted the 2nd goal to seal the game for us. You know, it was looking a bit nervy at 1-0, West Brom had a few chances, but he killed the game off, you know, picked up the ball on the edge of the area, absolutely rifled it past the keeper. Great goal, and obviously it's great to see him obviously get his first goal of the season, and hopefully there'll be more to come after that. But like I said already, you know, the fact that he kept a clean sheet was a threat down the left, and was one of our biggest threats and reasons for domination, as well as getting the goal. An overall good performance, and obviously deserves a 7 I've given him. Obviously the captain Jason Puncheon, I'm also going to give him a 7. Much like what I said with Martin Kelly, he was a very calm presence in the Palace midfield, and you know, for the majority of the game where we were dominating the midfield, I think he was quite crucial to that. And in terms of, you know, our midfield 3 almost, of, you know, Puncheon, Kouyaté and Maya, I thought that was a very, very solid midfield, and the fact that they were all working quite nicely together in sort of a pivot role, you know, changing positions, the fact that they were doing that quite nicely obviously allowed us to control the game, because if you control the midfield, you basically stop passages of play from the opposition, and of course you link up their defence to the attack. So the fact that we got that combination right against West Brom was quite crucial, and of course Jason Puncheon was important to that as the captain. Now of course he was booked for, you know, breaking up a West Brom counter-attack, but as I've said before, sometimes you just take one for the team rather than just conceding a sloppy goal and potentially West Brom coming back into the game. Just take that card, because it only applies to Carabao Cup games. Take that card and obviously, you know, stop that chance and just defend the set piece. So certainly for me, Jason Puncheon, the captain, good performance from him, and some could argue maybe he should be, you know, getting back onto the bench in the Premier League, or maybe even, you know, potentially getting into the starting 11, because based on this performance and the one previously against Swansea City, he showed that coming back from injury, he might still have it, and certainly playing a little bit deeper than he normally does. He does seem to be playing quite effective in that role. Obviously, moving on now to Cheku Kouyaté, I'm going to give him a 7 as well. Not really too much to say about his performance, other than the fact that he was very solid in midfield and obviously rarely gave the ball away, and that was one of the reasons for our dominance, in the fact that we didn't give the ball away a lot, we didn't give West Brom time on the ball when they had it, and the fact that we were just generally sort of solid in the midfield. You know, we were going forward really well in terms of our attacking play, and of course, you know, Kouyaté in particular, making challenges, making tackles, just to make sure West Brom didn't have any chances. That was of course very impressive from him as well. Moving on now to Max Meyer, I'm going to give him an 8 overall. You know, arguably one of our best players on the day, in terms of, like I said, with Kouyaté, just winning, you know, sort of winning that battle in midfield, as well as just being a nice attacking threat. Now, in terms of Meyer in particular, I thought on the ball he was very neat and tidy. You know, all of his passes, all of his flicks, all of his touches were all fantastic. And once again, it just shows the composure he's sort of got on the ball, and the fact that he's, you know, being able to link up with his teammates so well. The fact that he was sort of the architect of our attacking moves. The fact that he was spreading the ball out, you know, doing back heel, doing things like this to get the ball to oppositions and linking well with them in an attacking sense. That was of course great to see as well. And it does beg questions for me personally, why he hasn't started so far in the league. Maybe it's because Roy Hodgson has embedded him into the team slowly. Personally for me, based on this performance, based on the few times he's come off the bench in the Premier League, I think it's time we give this guy a chance in the Premier League, because based on this game, and like I said, the other games he's played so far, he showed his quality. And I think based on this performance, the fact that how well he carried the ball, how neat and tidy he was, and how composed he was in the centre of the park, I think he'd be a really crucial player, obviously, in the league for us. Obviously, moving on now to Jeffrey Schlupp, you know, playing in a slightly more forward role, obviously, because Papa Suayo had just come back from injury, so he was on the bench. So, of course, Van Aanholt was playing at left back, and it meant that Jeffrey Schlupp played further forward. I'm going to give him a 7 for his performance, because playing on the wing, I thought he was arguably one of our biggest attacking threats, in the fact that he had so many chances in front of goal. You know, he had a header, he had shots, and most of them, one or two went wide, but then quite a few of them also got saved by the keeper. So you've got to look at that and go, actually, Jeffrey Schlupp had a relatively good game, in the fact that he was, you know, getting on the end of chances, creating chances, but obviously he wasn't able to finish them off. But of course, you know, great chance at 2-0. Obviously he misguided his header, but the fact that he's not known for his heading, but the fact that he got into that position was of course great to see. And obviously playing on that left hand side, you know, you've got that support from Van Aanholt at left back, so of course he got forward very well, you know, Jeffrey Schlupp down that left hand side. And you know, because he's got this pace, and because he's got, you know, that ability to basically link up with our other forward players, it just means that he was a constant threat throughout the game, but arguably could have probably done better in front of goal. And you know, that's the point that we've spoken a lot, quite a lot this season, in the fact that he scored that goal against Fulham, great goal on the turn, but then other than that he hasn't really been that great and was rightly dropped from the team. So maybe a performance like this can sort of boost his confidence, and hopefully, considering how good he looked here, hopefully we can sort of see that from him in the next few games. So now to move on to the man of the moment, and that is of course Andros Townsend, who was playing on that right hand side of our front three in this game. And actually, you know, like I've said already, you know, man of the moment, a fantastic performance from him, and certainly does deserve the 8 I'm going to give him. Now, in terms of his goal, you know, if you look back to 2 seasons ago where he scored that goal, I think it was under Allardyce. Obviously he ran about 40-50 yards in that well, it was probably even 60 yards. You know, looking back at it, yeah, you're probably thinking that's about 60 yards he's ran. This goal was pretty much the same in terms of he ran quite a lot, probably slightly less in terms of yardage, but he picked up the ball just inside his own half after a sort of a nice knockdown from Alexander Sorloth. And of course he's ran, and just before, you know, sort of 25 yards out, just before the box, he's cut inside and then just unleashed an absolutely sort of unstoppable shot from about 25 yards, as I've said, and that was absolutely fantastic. Now, to add to that goal, obviously he goes up the other end in the second half, you know, sort of 80th minute or so, gets a nice ball from Wan-Bissaka, past one defender, past the other, and of course rifles it into the far corner away from the goalkeeper. So not only has he scored 2 fantastic goals in the game, you know, one which was fantastic in terms of cutting inside, the curl on it, the dip on it, and the fact that it went top corner, that was great. And of course the other one was good in the fact that he stepped past 2 defenders. I think he even sat one of them down as well, whilst also putting it away from the goalkeeper. So yes, that was great in terms of 2 fantastic goals, and certainly does deserve you sort of the man of the moment sort of tag, and obviously the 8 I've given him. But actually, if you look back to his attacking threat as well, he was obviously our biggest attacking threat in the game. Now, we saw, obviously, we know how good he is in the Premier League normally, how consistent he is, but we saw against Swansea when he came off the bench in the Carabao Cup second round, how much of an influence he had and how much he changed the game. And obviously this time he was starting in the game, and we just saw how much quality he has. And no disrespect to West Brom, but just how much better he is in terms of quality, in the fact that he was able to run the game as well as he did. Now, in terms of just a few of his attacking moments he created, or attacking chances he created, there was one perfect cross for Slupp, who probably should have done better, but I think the goalkeeper made a save. And then obviously Townsend, he done everything great in the game and deserves the 8. But then there was just one shot in particular where he's obviously tried his luck again, trying to cut inside, because obviously he scored a similar goal early on in the game, and then just rifles it out of the stand. So it just shows there's the two sides of Andros Townsend, where you can score an absolute superb goal and obviously, you know, potentially win us a game, or he can absolutely rifle it in out of the stand. So there's both sides of Andros Townsend in the game, but nevertheless, fantastic goal from him. Like I've said already, the fact that he ran about 40-50 yards, then cut inside, then from 25 yards out has obviously whipped it and, you know, got the dip on it, got it away from the goalkeeper into the top corner. That was of course great to see as well. And obviously the fact as well that Wan-Bissaka was able to get the ball to him inside the area, and he was able to get past two defenders. That was of course great to see as well. But like I've said already, his performance was great in terms of the first goal, but the fact that he also got the second goal, which I think is his first brace of his career, once again just shows the quality he has, and obviously how important he was for us getting the win. Obviously our final player, and that is the striker Alexander Sorloth. I'm going to give him a 7 overall. He's a player who some people, it's a bit like Marmite, some people like him, some people don't like him. Personally for me, I thought he had a good performance, and that's why I'm going to give him a 7. I think in terms of his hold-up play, that was probably his strength in the game, and I think he was very good at it. And like I've said with that Townsend goal, he was the guy who got the assist for it, in the fact that Sorloth held up the ball and obviously unleashed Townsend inside his own area. And like I've said already, you know, Townsend's strike was all well and good, but it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that sort of clever thinking and clever play from Sorloth to get the ball to Townsend in the first place. Now, of course, he had a few good sort of attacking opportunities himself, but obviously he didn't make the most of them. But once again, you know, yes, strikers, they're employed to score goals, but if you've got other players in the team who are scoring goals, and you've got a player who, if they're not going to score goals, I'd rather them contribute something, i.e. giving an assist to Townsend, or sort of just having that sort of attacking influence up front, as opposed to not scoring and just not doing anything at all. So overall, I know some people will criticise him, but I personally think, considering he got the assist, as well as just having very good physical sort of hold-up play as well, that was of course great to see as well. Now, in terms of the subs in the game, obviously I've mentioned already, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka came on for Jara Reedwald in the 20th minute, so quite early on in the game. Going to give him a 7 because this guy never fails to impress, and considering he's only had about 16, 17, I might even be 18 first team appearances for Palace, the fact that he keeps impressing me week on week, and every game he plays obviously just goes to show the quality he has. But once again, impressing me really, well, I say impressing me, he impressed everyone, but once again, obviously he came off the bench, which isn't always easy, you know, the fact that you might take some time to get into the game. But that didn't seem to affect him. You know, he still put in, you know, the number of fine tackles like he normally does. And there were loads of runs from fullback, you know, marauding runs, I suppose is the word you could use, in the fact that he would just pick up the ball from the defence and drive forward. So you could argue, as well as good as someone like Slupp and Townsend were in the game, actually someone like Wan-Bissaka was just as important, in the fact that he was making runs from right back. And I mentioned at the weekend in the fact that to improve his performances, I said that he needed to attack more, which is exactly what he'd done against Newcastle, and once again here, albeit against sort of lower opposition, the fact that he was able to do that, as well as, you know, come off the bench, keep a clean sheet as well, that was of course very important. Obviously Papa Soare and Jordan Ayew came on for Van Aanholt and Townsend respectively. Now obviously I'm not really going to give them ratings because they weren't really on the pitch long enough to make an impact, but obviously Papa Soare's had an injury over the last sort of month or so, so it was nice just to give him a sort of run out. And although he didn't have too much involvement, there were a number of sort of headers out for corners and nice bits of defending in terms of just clearing the danger that I saw when he came on, so that's of course great to see. And although he's probably third choice left back now, the fact that we've got an option like him to either play in an attacking role or just to play in the cups and just give us a very competent defender, that's of course great to see as well. And of course Jordan Ayew, obviously it suggested to me that we're probably protecting him for when we play on Monday, but he was obviously on the bench, came on for Townsend, and although he was only given the sort of final few minutes, he still had a couple of chances towards the end of the game. So the fact that he came on so late but still had a number of chances, one or two of them, the keepers making a good save, and of course our defence sort of mop up their mistakes as well. So the fact that he was able to come on, get loads of chances, albeit not finish them, that was of course great to see as well. Now overall, sort of just a really quick summary of the game, because I know not everyone's interested, but in terms of the performance, it was a very good performance, not only because of the goals, but in terms of the way the team played, the passing, the sort of movements in play, everything about the performance was very impressive, and of course the result, as well as the clean sheet, is important as well. Now obviously players like Townsend, they haven't necessarily been that effective this season. Townsend's been very consistent, but necessarily hasn't shown us that quality, so hopefully players like him, maybe even you could look at someone like Jeffrey Slupp, who's not had the best of starts of the season. You've got to look at players like that, them two in particular, and go, hopefully they can sort of translate that form and translate the ability and sort of quality they showed in the game here against West Brom, and hopefully translate it into coming games in the next few weeks in the league. And personally for me, the final point really for me is, I've seen a lot of debate, in terms of, do we want a cup run this year? Do we just want to be secure and sort of push for top 10? Whatever sort of the club in terms of the hierarchy are sort of aiming for, personally for me, I'd absolutely love a top 10 finish, or even just sort of mid-table, basically anywhere in the sort of mid-table, sort of top of the mid-table, and maybe a cup run. Hopefully we can progress well in this competition this year, because that's personally what I'm hoping for, because what we've shown so far in the 2 games we've played in the Carabao Cup is, we've got players who don't necessarily get in the first team, but we've got good squad players who can come in here and still mix well with a few of our first team players. And the fact that we can have that sort of mix between first teamers and reserves, as well as still putting in a very good performance, not only in the result, but in the fact that the sort of the system and the way we played is of course great to see. So hopefully, based on that, and based on the fact that we've now got that squad depth, hopefully we can progress well in the competition this year. So now I'm going to move on to the Man of the Match award. But before I do that and give you my Man of the Match and who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations I've put forward for the award. Now, as you've probably heard in the short player ratings, obviously as I do for cup games, I just basically sort of talked about the performance as a whole, just basically summing up, saying it was a very good performance, and not just because of how the players performed and sort of the system and sort of the play we saw throughout the game, but also the quality of the goals as well was really good in the game. So for me personally, a very good performance against the West Brom side. I think it was pretty difficult for me to narrow it down to 4 players, because there were quite a few players, as you've heard in the player ratings, that did impress me throughout the game. But I've gone with these 4 players mainly because I think what they contributed to the game, it was really impressive. And of course, albeit against the West Brom side, I still thought they still obviously put in a shift for the side and certainly were important to the win, as well as the clean sheet as well. So I'm going to just sort of name my 4 I've picked. So I've gone with Patrick Van Aanholt, Joe Ward, Max Meyer, and obviously Andros Townsend. Now in terms of, I suppose you could cover both Van Aanholt and Joe Ward, by firstly just saying they both got clean sheets, so of course that's great to see as well. And obviously, just to sort of start with Van Aanholt, he looked to go forward at every opportunity, and of course scored our second goal, sealed the game at that point, and obviously we went on to score our third as well. So not only was Van Aanholt, like Ward, involved in terms of helping us keep the clean sheet, but also he was very important to us going forward and dominating the game. So for that reason, and the fact that he was very effective going forward, and the fact that he got the goal, that's the reason he's on my shortlist. As I've mentioned already, Joe Ward kept the clean sheet, which for any defender is obviously, you've got to give them credit. But the fact that he started at right back, then moved to his unnatural position at centre back after Reedwald went off, the fact that he was still able to play there out of position and still put in a really competent performance, still put in loads of vital interceptions and challenges, just goes to show how well he adapted and obviously how well he done for the side. So for me, the fact that he got that clean sheet whilst playing out of position, and the fact that he was able to adapt to that and still put in a good performance, is why he's on my shortlist. Obviously Max Meyer, this guy, has really sort of blown me away in terms of his performances recently. The times he's come off the bench, albeit he's only been given sort of 20 minutes here and there, the fact that he played this game and played as well as he did, absolutely fantastic in the middle of the park, was great to see. In terms of the passing, he was obviously our best passer of the ball, very neat and tidy with that. Not only was he good at spreading the ball out wide, but he was able to, in little small spaces, he was able to make attacks and start attacks, but obviously by his really nice passing. And of course he's got that composure as well to link up with his teammates. So not only was he good with the ball in terms of pinging these passes and doing back heels and things like that, but also he was very good with the link-up play. So for that, in terms of his attacking threat in the midfield, that's why he's on the shortlist. And of course, Andros Townsend, you know, it would be criminal of me not to include him. You know, when you score one goal with the quality as his first one is obviously great, and you get in the shortlist. But the fact that he scored 2 fantastic goals in this game just makes it even better. You know, as I've already mentioned, you know, the first goal was great in terms of running from his own half, then cutting inside and then scoring a lovely curling sort of dipping effort from 25 yards. That's obviously great to see as well. But also, if you put that with the fact that he scored another fantastic goal, you know, got that pass from Wan-Bissaka, you know, got dribbled past 2 defenders and then put it in the far corner away from the goalkeeper. That was of course very impressive as well. So he's obviously not on the shortlist, but just purely based on the fact that he scored 2 goals, but actually as an attacking threat as well. You know, you take away the 2 goals, and actually his attacking threat was very good as well. So not only did he score 2 fantastic, or even superb goals, you could say, actually he was very effective going forward as well, and especially there was one chance to Slup as well. So not only, like I said, did he score these 2 impressive goals, but also going forward he was quite integral to the way we played. But personally for me, you know, all these 4 players, and maybe a few other players I could mention as well, but all these 4 players obviously deserve credit for their performances, and certainly they were quite crucial and key. You know, you're looking at Van Aanholt and Ward in terms of keeping the clean sheets, Mayer in terms of our attacking play, and of course Andros Townsend for the goals. So you're looking at these 4 players going, they had quite a lot of influence. But for me personally, you know, when you score 2 goals as good as that, I think there's only one winner for me. So congratulations, Andros. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was another solid performance from you. And hopefully, as I mentioned at the end of the player ratings, hopefully, given that confidence of scoring your first ever brace, hopefully that sort of can help you to bring that form into the league. Because certainly, based on that performance you put in, you know, you're telling me you're right on form, and obviously you're raring to go. So hopefully, we'd see a bit more or similar performances, let's say, to the ones we saw here against West Brom in the league, because like I've said already, it was an absolutely fantastic performance from Andros Townsend. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got interviews with Roy Hodgson and Andros Townsend following the game.
Oh my gosh, Andros! Woo! What a finish, my guy! Oh my days, what a lovely build-up. Chop! Get out of here, man. Oh my days, he sent him for a hot dog, didn't he? Oh my god. Everyone talking about my commentary. It's got to be done. When man's running around chopping people like that, doing those things, it's got to be talked about, you know? Shout out Andros.
Pleased with that?
Yeah, obviously Wolf's a funny character, and it's the first time I've seen that goal back actually. No, it's good to get on the score sheet tonight. It's been a long time coming, and hopefully I can put away a few more chances in the coming weeks.
Let's go back to that first goal, because if you're going to build an Andros Townsend robot and make it score an Andros Townsend goal, it would be that one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's similar to the one against Liverpool where I've come inside and hit the bar. But yeah, no, thankfully it dipped a bit more, and yeah, no, I'll take that. Hopefully gives me a bit more confidence when shooting in the future, and hopefully, yeah, I can put a few more away like that.
Loads of chances today, weren't there? It was a really dominant performance. I feel like everyone had a good game.
Yeah, I think we had 3 goals, but again, we could have had 7 or 8. But no, we'll take the 3 tonight. We'll build on that, and hopefully we have the confidence going into Monday's game to put away the chances we didn't against Newcastle.
Is this a nice cup to try and have a good run in, because there's games early on in the season that gives all the squad players a chance as well?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed this competition. I think in the first few rounds you have to make changes. That's natural, but I think we were lucky in the fact that we don't play till Monday, so we could play a few more starting 11 players as well as the players that need games. So no, it was good for us, and you win one more game before you know it, you're in the deeper rounds, and then anything can happen. It's a competition. I've been to the final before, so I know how good a competition it is, and hopefully yeah, we can go on a little run here.
Got to see Max Meyer play the full game today. The fans haven't seen too much of him yet this season. What can you tell us about kind of player he is from playing against him in training?
Yeah, I think everything you saw tonight, he's a very technical player. He gets on the ball, he's not afraid to get it and turn in the tightest of areas, and he's a player that can create, and I'm sure we'll see the best of him as the weeks go on and as the more and more he gets used to the Premier League.
A dominant performance. I imagine you're a pretty happy man this evening.
Right, yeah, I thought we played extremely well. I mean, I thought we played well at Swansea. I thought we were even better tonight. against a tough opponent as well. I thought that we dominated the game all the way through, but I was most impressed by the quality of our defending, and even more impressed by the quality of our attacking, because the 3 goals were even scant reward for the chances we created. But credit, of course, to the goalkeeper and the West Brom defence for putting their bodies on the line and maybe blocking a few of those opportunities. But I don't think it would have been a scandal had we scored more goals. And this is never an easy place to come to and play. I thought West Brom were unbelievably unlucky last year to get relegated. For me, they weren't one of the 3 worst teams in the Premier League, and they've kicked off this season well, and they have a big and a strong squad. And I thought that, you know, to go out and play the game we did against them was absolutely everything I was looking for, hoping for. And credit, of course, to that body of fans who follow us around, and I'm delighted for them that they're going to be taking the long journey home, having seen such a good performance. And I'm certain maybe feeling a bit more excited about some of the guys they haven't seen quite so often, because a lot of them have been on the bench up to this point.
First goal from Andros, fantastic. That's the kind of goal he was scoring a lot when you first picked him for England all those years ago. Yeah,
absolutely, and he scored a few in between times, but you know, there's also been a few times in recent years, I guess. I mean, certainly in the last year when I worked with him, where he's got into that position but hasn't quite found the net. So it was delightful that he did today, and I'm hoping now that he's found his range, and when he cuts inside, he'll be producing a few more of those, because there's no doubt he has that in his locker.
You mentioned the defence, three clean sheets in a row now, but they coped well with having to change with Gyro going off fairly early on.
Well, I was lucky that I decided to bring Aaron Bissaka. I wasn't necessarily intending to play him today, because I really wanted to see Joel and Martin and Gyro. I wanted to see those guys. I was hoping to get Pap on the field. Had we scored, you know, the 2-0 goal a bit earlier, he would have come onto the field earlier. But it was good to have Bissaka there, because had we not had him with us, we'd have had to play one of the younger boys, you know, the under-23 boys, Sam Woods, and that would have been a very tough ask for him at a 1-0, with leading 1-0, but dominating the game, and everyone saying you should be well ahead by now, you should be safe and clear. For him to have to come on and play would have been a tough ask at this moment in time.
Thanks, Roy.
Pleasure.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Roy Hodgson and Andros Townsend had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against West Brom. But make sure to come out next week from a post-match review of the game against Bournemouth. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.